2 gold medals, 48 hours. One country that, before that weekend, had never won a single Olympic gymnastics medal of any color at any games in its entire history. That's the number we're starting with, because everything else about Carlos Yulo only makes sense once you understand exactly how impossible that stretch in Paris really was. This isn't a feel-good underdog clip you scroll past in 10 seconds. This is a kid who, less than a year before becoming a national hero, finished dead last out of 91 gymnasts at a world championship, so far outside contention that his own teammates thought his Olympic dream was over. By the time we're done here, you'll know exactly which records already belong to him, which one is still sitting empty in his trophy case, and why the man he idolized as a boy never had to say a single public word for Yulo to already prove he belonged in the same conversation. Stop for a second and actually sit with what it means for a country to have 0 Olympic gymnastics medals in its history before one specific person shows up. It's not a technicality. It means no funding structure built around producing this kind of athlete. It means no domestic competition circuit deep enough to sharpen someone to a world-class level. It means every single step of the ladder, the coaching, the exposure, the international experience, had to be found somewhere else, borrowed from another country's system, because the one at home simply didn't exist yet. That's the starting line most people skip past when they talk about this story, and it's the whole reason the next several minutes matter. Let's start with the record almost nobody saw coming, because nobody had a reason to expect it. Firsts. First Filipino gymnast to ever medal at a world championship. First Filipino world champion the sport has produced. First Filipino man, and the first Filipino gymnast of any gender to win an Olympic gold medal. Every one of those titles carries his name and no one else's, because before he showed up, the list of Filipino gymnastics champions simply didn't exist. There was nothing to compare him to. He wasn't following a pipeline. He was building one competition at a time, in a sport with essentially 0 infrastructure behind him in his own country. Rewind further, back before any of the medals, back to a playground in Manila. There was no scouting network sweeping through neighborhoods looking for the next great gymnast. What there was instead was a grandfather paying close attention while a kid flipped and tumbled around like it was the most natural thing in the world, and a facility manager willing to give that same kid a free shot at real training. That's it. That's the entire origin story. No academy, no talent pipeline, no funding program built with a future Olympic champion in mind. Just 2 adults noticing something and deciding not to ignore it. Yulo has talked about what it felt like walking into a real gym for the first time. He said it felt like paradise, watching gymnasts everywhere around him, training seriously, and telling himself, right there, that he wanted to be one of them. He competed in his first national schools competition at 9 years old, a kid barely tall enough to be taken seriously, already chasing something bigger than the room he was standing in. Then came the moment that actually set the direction of his entire career. Watching the 2012 London Olympics on a television screen back home, a Japanese gymnast named Kohei Uchimura caught his attention and never let go. Yulo has said Uchimura inspired him more than anyone else in the sport, that watching him was the moment he decided he wanted to go to the Olympics and win a medal just like his. That wasn't a passing childhood crush on a famous athlete. That was the exact moment a kid from a country with no Olympic gymnastics history at all decided the impossible was actually the plan. 4 years later, in 2016, the Japan Olympic Association offered him a scholarship to train in Tokyo, part of a friendship-building program between the 2 countries' gymnastics federations. He was 16 years old. 16, and moving alone to a country whose language he didn't speak, leaving behind his family and everything familiar, for a shot at a level of coaching the Philippines simply had no way to offer him. He's admitted it was hard. He was a shy kid to begin with, and now he was shy in a language he didn't understand yet, isolated in a new country, learning an entire sports vocabulary from scratch, while also learning how to order food. He pushed through it. He kept training under his new coach, kept going to school in Tokyo, and eventually started calling that same coach his second father. The kind of relationship you don't build unless the hard years actually mattered. The results didn't take long once the adjustment period passed. In 2018, at the World Championships in Doha, Yulo won bronze on floor exercise, the first medal any Filipino gymnast had ever won at a World Championship, and the first for any Southeast Asian gymnast at all. 1 year later, in Stuttgart, Germany, he went further still, taking gold on floor with a 15.3, overtaking Israel's Ardem Dolgopyet late in the final, to become the first Filipino world champion in gymnastics history. 2 medals, 2 years, and a kid who'd left home at 16 had already rewritten what an entire country's gymnastics program was capable of. But here's the moment worth slowing down for, because it's the one that actually explains everything that came after. That same year, 2019, Yulo competed at the All Japan Senior Championships, Japan's own national championship, held on Japanese soil, against the very best gymnasts the host country had to offer. Not an international field, padded out with lower-ranked competitors. Japan's actual best, on Japan's actual home turf. A 19-year-old Yulo stepped up for floor exercise and posted a 14.8. It was enough to tie for the gold outright. Standing across from him, sharing that exact top step of the podium, was Kohei Uchimura, the childhood hero, the reason a boy in Manila had started dreaming about gymnastics in the first place, watching a broadcast from London when he was 12 years old. 7 years after that broadcast, a teenager from a country with essentially no Olympic gymnastics tradition had just matched, medal for medal, score for score, the man many consider the greatest to ever compete in this sport, on Japanese soil, in front of a Japanese crowd, in Japan's own championship. Think about the odds of that sentence being true for anyone, let alone a kid who'd been in the country for barely 3 years. And if you're only finding this channel now, this is exactly the kind of moment we come here looking for. Not the highlight reel version everyone already knows, but the actual number underneath it that makes a story worth telling in the first place. Subscribing means the next athlete whose file looks like this one lands in your feed the moment we've dug it up. Now to the part of the story that doesn't get a highlight reel, because heartbreak rarely does. Tokyo, held in 2021 after a year's pandemic delay. This was supposed to be Yulo's coronation, a games close to his adopted training home, back-to-back world championship medals behind him, and expectations stacked sky high. Some in his own camp thought he had a real shot at medals in both floor and vault. Instead, he fell during floor exercise qualification and missed that final entirely, the one event where he was the reigning world champion, gone before it even started. He salvaged a spot in the vault final and finished fourth. The margin between him and a bronze medal, 0.017 of a point, 17 thousandths of a single point, the kind of number that exists specifically to torture an athlete who replays it in their head for years afterward. He left Tokyo with nothing. The first Filipino gymnast to compete at the Olympics in over half a century, had come agonizingly close to making history and watched it slip through by a margin too small to even properly explain to someone who doesn't follow the sport. He didn't disappear after that. 2 months later, he answered hard, winning gold on vault and silver on parallel bars at the 2021 World Championships in Kitakyushu, Japan. A fast, decisive response to a disappointment that would have quietly ended a lot of careers' momentum to Locked. But the road from there to Paris wasn't a straight climb. It was, if anything, the opposite. Then he crashed his vault entirely, scoring a 0 for failing to land on his feet. When the dust settled, he'd finished dead last, out of 91 gymnasts, in the all-around competition. He later said his whole team was crying, that they genuinely believed he wouldn't make it to the Olympics after what they'd just watched happen. He barely qualified for the floor final, on a technicality. Finishing fourth, there was just enough, since he was the highest-ranked gymnast without a team spot or all-around berth already locked in, to punch his ticket to Paris anyway. An Olympic spot, rescued out of what should have been a career-defining collapse, by the thinnest possible technical margin. And that wasn't even the whole weight he was carrying that year. In 2023, Yulo also parted ways with Kugimiya, the coach who'd guided him since he was 16, the same man he'd once called his second father, later explaining he felt he'd outgrown that relationship. On top of that, he navigated a painful public rift with his own mother over financial disagreements, the kind of family strain that plays out in headlines instead of privately, at the exact moment an athlete needs the fewest possible distractions. Pressure stacking on pressure, in the 1 year that mattered most, less than 12 months before he'd need to be at his absolute best on the biggest stage of his life. Paris, August the 3rd, 2024. First Filipino man, and the first Filipino gymnast of any gender, to ever win an Olympic gold medal. Only the second Filipino Olympic champion in history, in any sport, period, following weightlifter Hidilyn Diaz's win in Tokyo. He collapsed to the ground in tears the moment the number appeared on the board, the weight of every setback finally landing somewhere else besides on his shoulders. "I'm grateful for the people who truly believed in me through the ups and downs," he said afterward. "We are a really small country, so to be able to get a gold medal for us is huge for us." The very next day, August the 4th, he stepped up again for the vault final, and delivered again, averaging 15.116 across 2 vaults for a second gold medal in as many days. 2 golds, 2 days. One country's entire Olympic gymnastics history, rewritten twice, 48 hours apart. Winning yesterday took away all of my stress, he said after the second gold. Today I was more chilled and relaxed. It helped me give it all, because there was nothing to lose anymore. It's so crazy. I don't know what to feel right now. Here's the part worth stating plainly and honestly, the part a lot of versions of this story quietly skip, because it's more satisfying to invent something. There is no verified quote of Kohei Uchimura reacting publicly to that double gold in Paris. If he said something about it, it isn't documented in any source that can actually be confirmed, and we're not going to manufacture a reaction just because the story feels like it needs a bow tied on it. What we can tell you, instead, is exactly who Yulo had already matched 5 years earlier on that Japanese podium, which, in a way, tells you more than a hypothetical quote ever could. Uchimura retired in early 2022 after 4 Olympic Games and 7 total medals, including back-to-back individual all-around golds in 2012 and 2016, a feat only 3 other men in Olympic history have ever managed, and the first gymnast to pull it off in 44 years. He also holds 10 World Championship golds, more than any other gymnast in history at the time he stepped away from the sport. Even Nadia Comaneci, the Romanian legend who scored the first ever perfect 10 in Olympic history, has called him simply the greatest of all time. Not a hometown opinion, not a starstruck teenager's take, but the closest thing this sport has to a universal verdict. That's the hero Yulo grew up chasing through a television screen in Manila. By the time he left that 2019 podium in Japan with a gold medal around his neck, matching the exact score of the man he'd once only watched from across an ocean, the chase had already quietly been won, years before an Olympic medal of his own ever entered the picture. Yulo hasn't slowed down since Paris, either. In April 2026, competing for OGP Gymnastics in Antibes, France, the exact country tied to his Olympic legacy, he won the French Club Championship's Top 12 Series title, posting a 14.833 on floor and a 14.7 on vault in the semi-final. He called it a special moment, being back in the country where that legacy began, proud to stand alongside a team that showed up strong and focused, adding simply that they weren't done yet. 2 months later, in June 2026, at the Asian Championships in Guiyang, China, he claimed his 5th consecutive floor exercise gold, edging Japan's Shoma Tsukiyama by a single tenth of a point, his 12th total Asian Championship medal. And on that exact same podium stood his younger brother, Eldrew, taking bronze. The two Yulo brothers, sharing an international podium together for the first time in either of their careers. Eldrew has said before that he cried watching his older brother win Olympic gold, because it's his dream too, and now he's building a competitive career of his own, following the exact same path, 7 years behind where his brother once stood. Turning 26 this year, Yulo has stopped talking about Los Angeles 2028 like it's a finish line. "I feel blessed to experience this kind of journey as an athlete," he said. "There's the LA Olympics, of course, and after that, we don't know if I'll continue, but I can see myself making it to the 2032 Olympics as well. And there's one specific ambition he's named himself, still unmet, qualifying for an Olympic individual all-around final. His best finish there so far is 12th, set in Paris in 2024. Everything else on the list, he already has, in multiples. A kid discovered on a playground in Manila, who once finished dead last out of 91 competitors at a world championship, is now openly talking about a 3rd, and possibly a 4th Olympic Games, still chasing the exact standard he first saw flicker across a television screen when he was 12 years old, watching a man from a country halfway around the world do something he decided, right then, that he wanted to do too. Line up the whole timeline, and it stops looking like a career with lucky breaks scattered through it, and starts looking like a pattern. A shy teenager who couldn't order food in a new language turns into a world champion within 3 years. A gymnast who leaves an Olympics with nothing but a 17,000th of a point heartbreak answers it 2 months later with a world title. A competitor who finishes dead last out of 91 athletes, in tears in front of his own team, turns that exact same year into the platform for the greatest 48 hours in his country's Olympic history. Every low point in this story isn't a footnote before the good part. It's the actual mechanism that produced it. Take away Antwerp, and there's no context for how much Paris meant. Take away the 0.017 in Tokyo, and there's no reason the 2nd gold medal in Paris felt like relief instead of just another trophy. And now there's a younger brother on the exact same path, watching the exact same blueprint from a much closer distance than Yulo ever had. Eldrew isn't chasing a hero on a television screen from another country. He's chasing a hero who trains in the same gym, eats at the same table, and already knows exactly which mistakes cost the most. Does Carlos Yulo add individual all-around gold to that collection before it's all over? Drop your prediction in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if this is the kind of story you want more of, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because between Los Angeles 2028 and Brisbane 2032, this record chase is nowhere near finished.